Yo, we are live. Hello, everyone in the chat. We will be answering questions today for anybody that has any Bitcoin related anything and all that. And there's the four of us right now. There might be more of us hopping in on the call over time here. We got some subjects we're going to cover throughout the week, news events and things like that. And then we'll get into answering questions probably about halfway through. We usually do these lives for about an hour. So with me today, Josh from WorkSafe Bitcoin. We got Dan from Bitcoin Reactions and Ralph from Nurse Hodl. How are you guys doing this week?
Pretty solid,
man.
Doing well, man. Doing well.
Nice. Love to hear it. So Bitcoin's been on a bit of a tear. And with that, we had a bunch of people sharing this screenshots of this website when Bitcoin temporarily hit the 5 spot on assets. So this is assets ranked by market cap, public companies, precious metals, cryptocurrencies, and ETFs. Bitcoin temporarily hit right above Amazon here before NVIDIA. NVIDIA. I always mispronounce that. Bitcoin's price is so volatile that it can move up just a little bit here and past these. Like, it's super close to silver right now, and all of these are really, really tight. And then there's $500 billion between it and NVIDIA. So what do you guys think about Bitcoin and these other assets that it's around? Like, I mean, right now it's behind silver. I mean, to me, that seems crazy.
Yeah.
Behind
I think
Alphabet.
the end of the year, we're gonna. I think we're gonna sit at number. I mean, that's just me. I think we might sit at number 2 spot by like the end of the year. I don't think that's impossible, honestly.
Yeah, it's
All the
definitely
demand.
possible.
Yeah.
And
Okay, so if it's set at
interesting
number
is,
2,
like,
what would Bitcoin's price have to be 3 trillion? It would have to be.
I think I think wasn't it like right around like, I don't want to say 200K. I'm not sure. I would have to like.
seeing like 150, 160. Mental math.
I mean,
3 trillion divided by 20 million, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah, like 140.
Yeah, that's
close.
they can
That's
do it.
close.
that's light work.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's definitely inevitable, right? Like, one security, like, these companies aren't going to be around forever. Like, it's definitely a when, not an if. And like, we already know that Bitcoin is better gold, right? Like, there's no reason, like, if everyone understood it, that we shouldn't already be at the market cap of gold. So it's inevitable, but it's fun. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's like, it's clicking up one after the other after another. I don't even think going after gold is really going to be the big deal, because I think it's inevitable that it's going to be number 1. I think the bigger the bigger thing is when it's going to be bigger than the entire S&P 500. And I
That's
do
huge.
think that we will see that. It probably will take a little bit longer, but there's no reason why it shouldn't.
And then I think the bigger picture is when it's eats half the bond market and half the real estate market too.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, we think about the stock market so much as investors and, people trying to save their wealth and stuff. But the bond market's even bigger. Real estate is bigger than the stock market. I mean, I just looked up the market cap of the S&P. It's $44 trillion, the market capitalization. That's just what AI told me. So that's huge. Like, right now, if we look at that chart again, gold is the top one at 22 trillion. So all of gold is half of all the 500 companies, the biggest 500 companies in the US stock market. To me, it just seems inevitable. I mean, 140,000 per Bitcoin. That does not seem that crazy to me for a price. And then it becomes right underneath gold. And I think really what happens then is it's going to spark a lot more like pragmatic, realistic conversation about Bitcoin from Bitcoin skeptics and no coiners. I think it's just inevitable at that point. It's like, this thing is more valuable than all these other assets except gold. Like, you have to take it seriously now. And there's still so many people that for whatever reason, they still don't take it seriously, and they're still able to not take it seriously. I think it's to their own detriment, but there's a lot of people that don't care about Bitcoin still.
And that's kind of the key, because hopefully a lot of people will continue to not care about Bitcoin, but will be invested in it because it's just the thing that you own. Nobody cares about how the dollar works or how the current financial system works. I mean, we care, but for the most part, your average person on the street, just it doesn't matter to them. It's not something that they think about. That's specifically why Bitcoin is able to flow under the radar, and exactly why the people in charge of the financial system are able to handle and manage the financial system the way that they're doing. So when it gets to the point where it's boring for people and where they just have it because that's what everyone else has, in the same way that we use dollars because that's what everybody else uses, that's when you know that Bitcoin won. So right now we have this Bitcoin culture. It's really cool because we're ahead of the game. Everyone watching this, everyone in the comment section, they're so far ahead of the game, because one day this channel is going to be, it's going to look so ridiculous because there's no channel talking about, oh, the dollar is so great. Like there's no dollar community of people that love dollars.
Dollar maxis.
Yeah, there's no dollar maxis. So I think it's going to be really interesting, come back maybe 30, 40 years, we'll all be old then, but the Bitcoin will be completely infiltrated into society to the point where, yeah, it's just responsible for everything. It underpins, all of the global finance, and, we'll look back and say we were there early, and everyone on this call was there early too. So,
yeah.
And the thing about passing the market cap of gold too, that's like something that could happen like at any moment, honestly. Like, whose dog is this?
Someone's dog's off. Okay, we're good.
But yeah, like it's like something that, like, let's say like a few like sovereign wealth funds decide, oh, well, we'll put like 5% into Bitcoin, and next thing you know, like Larry Fink said on one of his interviews, like next thing you know, it's like $700 Bitcoin, like that could happen at any moment, really. So I know, just be ready, man. Keep stacking.
Yeah, it does seem like there's it's that saying, like, gradually then suddenly. It does seem like there's a lot of suddenly moments that can happen. I think today, and the title of this live stream, 42,000 Bitcoin holding for a new Bitcoin treasury company. I think that was like a suddenly moment for me. Like, I didn't expect there to just be, and we'll get into this more. I wanted to reach another topic first, but I just didn't expect there to randomly be this SPAC merger company come out of nowhere with a ton of funding behind it, buying a bunch of Bitcoin. Like that's a suddenly moment. And, who knows what else that will trigger. And I think it is obvious. Like, it is obvious those things are going to happen, but when they do happen, it's still surprising, I think, because we don't know what shape they take. I want to move on to this next one here, guys, and it's in a similar vein, but basically Bitcoin did really well last week. It went from around 84K to hitting 94K, and reaching, not all of us are into technical analysis, but it, reached some points and some important metrics within technical analysis charts, and is performing really well and looking really strong. And, the buyers are showing up and buying Bitcoin from the sellers. It's pushing up the price. And I wanted to share this chart, which is a popular chart among Bitcoin and markets in general, but it shows the psychology of a market. And if we look at that, we can see that right before the market kind of rips up, people are still in disbelief. This first one here at the bottom left, people are in disbelief, and then there's hope that a recovery is possible. And people really, they really don't. It's an emotional thing to be investing, right? So you can see all of these things are emotions, and there's a lot of panic, capitulation, denial, anxiety. Like, it's hard to figure out where we are in the market. It's easy to look back at a chart and be like, oh, that was so obvious. But when you're in it, You're not sure where where you're at in the market cycles. So I'm curious to hear from you guys. There's a lot of people that think, oh, the top was whatever we hit, 109,000 or 100, whatever it was. That's the top. Whatever is happening now, that's a dead cat bounce. That's just once it hits certain levels where people can exit, they're going to exit. That's going to be too much selling pressure. We're just going down again. So what do you guys think? Where are we in the market cycle? What do you feel yourselves, and what do you see from other participants in the market?
I mean, I think, sorry, us as I think us as Bitcoiners, like, we're always in the belief phase. So I think it just like breaks any rules that like have previously existed in any other cycles of how markets work. So like, yeah, like it defies any previous assumptions of what's going to happen. So like, I think that's, I don't know, there's no way to measure it against anything else that's ever happened.
Yeah, I don't know if I can't remember the name of the character in the Matrix where he said, "I don't even see the price anymore." I don't know. Do you guys know that meme by any chance?
Yeah.
That honestly is me. Like,
bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know if that's weird, but I don't care about the price anymore. I'm just like, oh, 90,000. Okay, I'm gonna keep buying. Oh, 200,000. Well, guess what? I'm gonna keep buying because guess what? The dollar is still gonna be going down in value. You know what? 1 million. Oh, guess what? I'm gonna keep buying. Like, it's like I don't care about the pricing. Like, I'm just numb to it now. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Dude, exactly. I'm right there with you. I like what Law said too. Real Bitcoiners want the price to go lower. I think what's interesting is I agree with him completely. I always want the price to go lower so I could swoop up some more Bitcoin. But the only reason why I want it to go lower is because I know that it's inevitable for the thing to reach, to go to the moon and rocket ship up. That is gonna happen. It's just math. There's a limited amount of Bitcoin. There's an infinity amount of dollars. When they print new dollars, they go to Bitcoin. So it's just going to go up. And because Bitcoin is so small, it's going to continue to go up at a much faster rate than almost anything else. So yeah, I want the price to go lower. It's going to go higher. And when it goes higher, I'll just take it as a win and say I was right or we were right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you guys too. I think, I don't think it really matters that much about price, but price is a reflection of, price is a bunch of signal of a lot of things. It's where people are at. It's where the market's at. It is determined by a lot of stuff. So it is good signal of where we're at and where people are thinking with this. But to just step on that other point as well, Jor from 88 Sats put it really well, in my opinion, where he says, like, if Bitcoin's price goes up, if you've saved in Bitcoin, it's a win because your net worth has gone up. And if Bitcoin's price goes down, it's a win because now you can buy more of it so like the wage that you're earning, the income you're taking in is now worth more because you're able to buy more Bitcoin with it. So if it goes up, it's a win. If it goes down, it's a win. If you're a Bitcoiner and you've been in here, you can't lose. It's awesome. So I love that. All right, guys, let's move on to the next thing here. And there's been a few people already bring up some questions, of course, and some comments about it. Jack's new company is going to be effing massive, says Alaya. So, all right. So this is quite interesting. How do I cue this up? So the company's called 21 Capital. It is partnered with Cantor Fitzgerald, and the CEO here, I'm going to bring up the CEO who stepped down is Howard Lutnick, who is now the Commerce Secretary in the United States. And basically the new CEO is this guy here, which I will bring up just one second. This Bitcoiner who I've actually loved a lot of this guy's speech, Jack Maullers. He's had some really great moments within Bitcoin, like content, in my opinion.
Me too.
He's also the CEO of Strike, And Strike is a pretty sweet company. He was instrumental in El Salvador adopting Bitcoin, and yeah, again, just has influenced me personally with some of his speeches. So this is the SEC filing of 21. We can get into more details about it, but let me just list off some of the key points before we move on. So it's a SPAC deal that's happening like right now, and the prominent players are SoftBank, which SoftBank is a Japanese investment business. They just invest in all sorts of stuff. And then Tether, which is the biggest stablecoin issuer. And there's actually in this SEC filing, it actually breaks down ownership as well. So this is something that is pretty important in my opinion. So voting ownership, Tether actually owns 51.7% of all the voting shares. Bitfinex and SoftBank own the other majority, which is actually a minority between both of them. So Tether basically, this is like a Tether offshoot, in my opinion, that is running the Sailor playbook. So within what they've decided to do, and we can talk about this whenever, but this is their mission statement. Their plan is to acquire Bitcoin, actively manage Bitcoin holdings, issue debt and equity securities for Bitcoin purchases, and other operating expenses. This is exactly what Strategy is doing. They also plan to do some like content stuff, and then on top of here, offering Bitcoin related debt and equity structured products. That would be like what Strategy is doing with their preferred stocks. And then Bitcoin related lending. This is kind of an interesting one that Sailor is not doing. So they're doing more. And then you can see here, this slide here is actually like directly comparing and competing against Strategy. So we can go into more of these details after, but what are your guys' first initial thoughts on this company and this SPAC?
Really quickly, when they say Bitcoin lending, does that mean that they're going to be lending their Bitcoin to other people?
So that's what's interesting is Howard Lutnick in the past has talked about like facilitating Bitcoin lending and Cantor Fitzgerald being a part of that. So they custody it, they could lend it, they could borrow it, all this kind of stuff. So I think it's going to be like both. I think they're going to like be on the custody part of it and borrow and lend. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like likely they're going to create lending solutions, not even only just for their own Bitcoin, but for Bitcoin in general, which would be interesting because what we're seeing right now with Bitcoin lending is we're seeing players facilitate Bitcoin lending, but they're outside of the TradFi lending systems right now. And therefore, the interest rates are way higher. There's issues with rehypothecation, although that exists in the TradFi too. But it's there's just so many things wrong with the Bitcoin lending system that there needs to be a better product for that for people that want to do that. I don't think people should do that, but people are going to do that. So they could create something for Bitcoin lending that would be a better product for the market of Bitcoin lending. That's what I'm seeing.
So I obviously need a lot of details about what they're actually going to do. But if they do something where they have Bitcoin, whether it's their own Bitcoin or other people's Bitcoin, and they are lending it out in return in hopes to get more Bitcoin later, that is a huge red flag for me. And that is very similar to what Celsius did. That is very similar to what FTX did. And I would stay away from it if that's what they're doing. Is that what they're doing? I don't know. It wasn't very clear from those slides, the details. But I don't think the people in charge of all of these companies, I think they all have very fiat minds. I think we've grown in a very fiat culture where lending is a very acceptable and required practice.
I don't know. I think saying Jack Maullers has a fiat mind is a bit of a stretch.
Like I said, I don't know what they're doing. I'm saying if they are lending out Bitcoin to other people, they are going to lose it at some point. That is something that's happened every single time. I don't care, how amazing Jack Maullers' speeches are. He makes amazing speeches. I don't care how smart he is. I hear he's a genius. At the end of the day, this is something that's time tested. People that lend out their money to other people in exchange for profits or yields or whatever you want to call it, they always end up losing. And I'm not saying this will lose soon, but it will lose eventually. So that's my opinion. If that's what they're doing. And like I said, maybe
I
that's
totally
not what they're
agree
doing.
with. Right. Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. Like the lending part of it is, a pretty scary, thing to think about. We gotta learn from our mistakes. But, confession here, as soon as I saw Jack Maullers 42,000 Bitcoin, I was like, oh, hold on. I gotta get at least 100 shares of that. I don't know. I'm just like, I'm in, man, because I'm such a fan of Jack Maullers. I'm like, there's no way that I'm not going to.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have some, fiat on my Roth IRA account. So I'm like, you know what? Just I'll just take a chance. Why the hell not? I'm not going all in. It's probably gonna be like a small portion of my Roth IRA account, but it's like it's I don't know. To me, I'm like, why not? Why not?
Yeah, for sure.
Just give it a try, man. I like the man. I like his messages. Like, this is not Sam Beckman-Fried. This is Jack Maullers we're talking about. So
Yeah,
scared money don't make money. So I'm like, hey, man, I will maybe use some of that fiat to buy some more Bitcoin. I don't know. So that's just me, man. Not financial advice, by the way. This is just I'm a low-key gambler on the side. So
yeah, and I'm excited about the Bitcoin education. I mean, that's what we're all doing here, right? Like, that's, I think, something that's lacking in the world. So I think spreading Bitcoin education to as many people as possible is, something I'm super behind. So it's cool to see that too.
Yeah, and for the lending part, I would just say lending is the kind of thing that in general works until it doesn't. I mean, what it does is it builds up risk within a system, and risk is really encouraged in the fiat system because it's private profits and public bailouts. So these companies that take on additional risk with lending and borrowing practices in the fiat world, with whether it's mortgage-backed securities or whatever, basis trades of leveraging up, that's all borrowed money too. So it facilitates a lot of additional risk within the system. And with Bitcoin, because it's something that doesn't have a backstop, there's nobody that can just print more Bitcoin if a lending system breaks, right? It could get backstopped with fiat to some degree, with some fiat type insurance, but it would have to source that Bitcoin from the market, and that could create a domino effect of price appreciation, and really that there could be like a negative feedback loop that could get away from somebody in a really disastrous situation of something that really had to be backstopped with a Bitcoin, with Bitcoin as its base, which I think is great. I think it's great that it's really risky and really hard to lend out Bitcoin safely. I think that's awesome because that de-incentivizes people to take on debt for overconsumption to happen. I think it's great that that things blow up that have too much risk within Bitcoin, because that's more of the free market, right? I don't think that we should have these backstops all the time to bail out people. Like, maybe we need our medicine. Maybe we shouldn't kick the can down the road, right? And that's what Bitcoin does. So yeah, they're going to take additional risk within this. I mean, they're taking on debt to buy Bitcoin. They'll probably end up lending out some of their Bitcoin. I mean, it's not unfathomable to think that that's what they're going to do. Mara has lent out 17% of their Bitcoin, and it hasn't been taken from them. It hasn't blown up, but right, like I said, it works until it doesn't. So down the line, that could backfire on them. But for now, they're earning some income from that Bitcoin that's otherwise sitting there. Is it going to work good for them? Is it not? It's really dependent on you as an investor. And ultimately, of course, all of us probably would just say like holding Bitcoin is better than any of this stuff. But right, even as Ralph said, he's got some fiat tied up in a registered account. He's gonna treat these things almost like people used to treat shit coins, right? He's doing a little shit coining with these public companies that have Bitcoin as their foundation and have additional risks on top of that. But it's still Bitcoin at the base. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. You guys have anything else to add there?
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean,
what you said.
One at a
I
time,
was
guys.
gonna
One
say,
at a time.
what you said it perfectly. It works great until it doesn't.
Yeah.
He's gonna look like a genius. Again, we're making a lot of assumptions about what they're doing, which they might not be doing at all. So like, if that's the case, huge caveat. But if that's what they're doing, he's going to look like a genius for a certain amount of time. He is going to be heralded as the next Michael Saylor, next whoever. But lending out your money to other people always works bad at the end. And if that's what happens, he will look like such a genius, just like Sam Bankman-Fried looked like such a genius until he didn't. And I don't really want to make that comparison because I don't think it's necessarily fair. But you said it also really, really well. It's not holding your own Bitcoin. If you want to stay away from this, if you want to reduce the risk, if you want to take control over your finances, self-custody your Bitcoin. There's just no other way.
Yeah, I think you're
And also,
missing
I want to say, go ahead.
I
Go
think
ahead,
you're
Josh.
missing a big part of it though, which is they're offering lending services to others. This is not a situation where they're like putting paper Bitcoin out there. They're not promising you yield on your Bitcoin. Like that's where the other companies went wrong. They're, at least the way I interpreted it, they're offering lending services to people with Bitcoin. I don't think that's an inherently bad thing, right? You put up a small amount of your Bitcoin stack as collateral for a fiat loan. There is going to be a liquidation price. You know what the liquidation price is going into it, and you lever yourself at a point where it's a percentage of your Bitcoin stack that you're comfortable at a certain liquidation price accepting a loan, and you're just at that point you're longing Bitcoin and shorting fiat. Like if you need to spend fiat in the short term to leverage a portion of your Bitcoin stack to do that, that's the kind of products they're offering. They're not,
Yeah,
So,
we're kind of speculating here a little bit. Like I do think, Josh, that is probably what they will end up doing. They'll create some sort of lending product, kind of like what Ledin is doing, where other people can lend with their Bitcoin and they facilitate a fiat exchange for that, and they take a percentage or something like that. That's probably likely. Obviously, we were talking about them potentially lending out their own Bitcoin. We don't really know 100% sure yet. I mean, this is a developing story. So, but I mean, we can theorize about which is a good idea for them to do or not,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
Also, the way I see it too is that not every it's not like every company is gonna just disappear in the stock market. Like I feel like the companies that are gonna survive are gonna be the companies with Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and just by them having 42,000 Bitcoin already and being like number 3, I think right now, after Mara and Strategy, is, to me, it's already a big deal. So I'm like, you know what? That's why I'm willing to take the risk in that case. But I mean, I agree with you, Dan. It's risky. I would not blame anybody else but myself if I lose that money, and that's a risk that I'm willing to take. So, but I agree with you 100%.
Which of you guys are gonna get some? One, Josh.
I already stacked a few shares. Yeah.
You already stacked a few shares. Okay, 2. Forrest.
I don't know. I haven't bought any. I had a thing happen where I tried to buy Fold pre-SPAC merger, and then Interactive Brokers kept sending me these warnings, and then they just liquidated my position and gave me my money back when the merge happened for the tickers. And I lucked out because, man, the SPAC price was like $12 a share. It's at like $4 right now. So I would have been 60% down on that holding. So I'm letting it ride. I'm gonna allow it to, hit the SPAC first, see how it does. I think if we're comparing it to something else, what I would be comparing it to would be MSTR. I'd be comparing it to MSTR in a couple different metrics. The metrics that Jack talked about when he was on, I think, Bloomberg or some news thing today, he talked about how their main metrics they're going to look at is, or KPIs are Bitcoin yield and Bitcoin per share, basically, or something like that. And so what I see there is they're going to rapidly be able to increase the Bitcoin per share a lot faster than Strategy can because of the size of their company, and because they have a lot of ammo to put into the market as far as converts, or these what they called what they described as Bitcoin related debt and equity structured products. They don't have any of those yet. Their initial offering does have 200 billion, or no, 385 million of convertible senior notes offering. So it's not exactly true that they don't have anything yet, because that's going to be like fresh off the bat right there. But they have a lot more room to go beyond that as well. So they're going to be able to acquire a lot of Bitcoin per share pretty quickly. And on that metric, they'll beat MSTR. But the thing is that I see here is that if they acquire Bitcoin in the open market, or however they actually acquire it, it's going to increase Bitcoin's price, and therefore it's going to be good for MSTR because they're already the biggest holder of Bitcoin. So I'm not going to sell my MSTR shares to allocate to this. To me, it just doesn't seem, I don't know, maybe it'll outperform, but I just don't see that big of a reason to do that.
Fascinating.
What's up?
What's up? Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Welcome, man. Welcome.
Let's go. Now it's a party. Let's go.
Gen Z, are you gonna buy?
Yeah, man. I definitely gonna cop a few shares. I really want the options. I want long dated options. That's gonna be awesome. But we'll see how this develops, and I'm very excited. I've been keeping up in the chat. Really, I've been spamming the chat. So thanks for putting me on screen. Love that.
I'll be real. Hanging out with you guys makes me feel like a complete square, because all I do is I buy Bitcoin and I hodl. I don't do any of these other products or businesses, Bitcoin related stuff.
No, you're not doing anything wrong, man. You're doing it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if Bitcoin goes up, I think we all win. So
Of course. Without
Yeah.
Bitcoin, none of this other stuff can work. You know what I mean? Everything else is cooked. Strategy has no place in the world. Strike has no place in the world without Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is a solid foundation by which everything else is built upon. And this is just me personally, the way I see it. Every time I think about how 200,000 Satoshis is roughly what everyone would have if Bitcoin was divided up evenly amongst people, the actual number is much lower. But when I look at that amount of Satoshis compared to the amount of Bitcoin that I have, I think, wow, I have like a lot more than the average person. So I should be okay. You know what I mean? So I'm obviously still stacking every single day. My DCA never changes. But in the meantime, I might do a little bit of extra on the side, try to see if I can continue to increase that yield, and increase my BTC per share, increase the amount of Satoshis I can have while we're still in the fiat system.
interesting. Yeah, I guess you guys call it BTC per share. I call it BTC for me. So
Yes.
I'm just always increasing my SAC count.
Yeah. Every single company, they're going to trend, like their market cap, their value is going to trend towards their Bitcoin holdings. So if this company starts off the gate, it's starting off the gate with 42,000 Bitcoin. Like they're not even having to go and source that or buy that anywhere. That's given to them for the ownership. Like part of it is from Tether, part of it's from Bitfinex, part of it is from SoftBank. And they start off at the gate with 42,000 Bitcoin already. So at first when I saw this, I thought, okay, well, is this why the price of Bitcoin's been going up? There's just this bid of like this company buying 42,000 Bitcoin in the background, but really it's actually like an OTC basically deal for ownership or part ownership of the company. So I mean, that company is already way more valuable in my mind than Apple. I know that's a crazy thing to say, but Apple doesn't have any Bitcoin, and I don't care how much fiat they have. I don't care how many iPhones they have in their airplanes that they bring over when they're afraid of tariffs. I don't care about any of that. I care about how much Bitcoin they have, and they don't have any. So they're not as valuable to me.
So really quickly, just help me do the math. Right now, Jack's new company, what's its valuation relative to its Bitcoin holdings?
I don't think we really know yet.
No. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Because the new ticker goes live tomorrow.
So we'll figure that out.
Yes.
Okay. I'm excited to see.
Yeah. The other thing I do question about this, and maybe this will be a talking point, their business model, like, you know, Strategy has the business intelligence software company. Mara has a Bitcoin mining company. GME still hasn't bought any Bitcoin for some reason, but they have a brick and mortar, you know, company. This really is a Bitcoin company just for acquisition purposes. And if they just use debt to do that, and they don't have like anything else besides the equity markets that they can sell equity into to raise funds, like, I just wonder where that all ends up going. Like, doesn't there still need to be something else behind that besides just debt and equity issuance? Like, what, I mean, well, I guess we'll see like what they end up creating from it, but to me it does seem like there should be at least some other kind of business behind it.
So I'll give you the super paranoid tinfoil hat version of what they're doing, right? If I want it to be as cynical as I possibly can be. And I'm not saying that this is what they're doing, but if I was going to be a conspiracy theorist, this is what I would say. What they're probably going to do is they are going to create a lot of hype for this, and the overall value, people are going to value it at a higher rate than the amount of Bitcoin that they own. And when that happens, people are going to be buying the shares, and the shares are going to be going straight to the company because the company is going to be selling those shares off. When that happens, the company is going to take that extra money and buy more Bitcoin with it. And while the Bitcoin per share might increase, what it's really doing is it's funneling value from the people that were putting in, let's say, $200 to buy this new stock, and a portion of that is going to be going to Tether, Jack Maullers, and all these other guys that are the bigger owners that are going to essentially have the pre-mine. That's what I would say if I was tinfoil hat, super skeptical. I think that the extra value is going to be coming from the shareholders themselves. Feel free to disagree.
This is actually a pretty common argument, but I think you just explained the exact MSTR playbook, you know, and
which is why I'm not in MSTR.
No, fair enough. But yeah, of course, Saylor gets richer as his company gets bigger. Of course, all of the shareholders also get richer as the company gets bigger, because otherwise there's no way for the funnel to keep going. You know, the underlying share price has to increase. Otherwise, the entire thing collapses. But the reason why the underlying share price increases is because the thing that's propping it up, part of what's propping it up, is their Bitcoin holdings. So as their Bitcoin holdings grow, the operating business is still generating money, but their treasury is creating so much value for them. They're putting all their value into the balance sheet rather than focusing on the P&L, right? And again, I think that they're going to continue to see this type of strategy deployed because it's so difficult to compete with a Bank of America. It's so difficult to compete with an Amazon, an Nvidia, a Google, right? And when you have these mega monopolies that are really hard to beat, what you have is a smaller company that's operating, it's generating some cash, but you're putting that cash to great use because you're buying something that is greater than the share dilution, right? Which is the Bitcoin. That's why they call it accretive dilution, which is obviously like a what's it called, an oxymoron. But what you're seeing is, despite the fact that they're selling shares into the market, they're issuing shares, the stock price keeps going up. You know, the amount of shares that MSTR has now is probably double compared to where it was a few months ago, but the price is still much higher despite that. And it's because their Bitcoin holdings have like 2x'd in a very short amount of time. I think Jack Maullers will do this exact same thing. We'll have to wait and see, but I'm ready for it.
But do you agree though that, because it sounds like you do agree that a big portion of the value is going straight to the people that started this company? It's essentially a pre-mine.
I'm not sure if you could say it's a pre-mine. Let's say that they have shares, right? They're paid in
Because
shares.
that's how stocks work. When you create a bunch of stocks
Yeah.
stocks are naturally given to the people in charge of it, right? That's how pre-mines work. It's essentially the same thing. There's slight technical differences, but more or less the same.
Okay,
My-
yeah, but it's also like it's all the people that invest. I mean, they're not given those shares for nothing. Like even SoftBank, Bitfinex, Tether, they've all given Bitcoin for the ownership of those shares, just as we could give our fiat for the ownership of those shares. And the concept is for the Bitcoin holdings to go up and for that Bitcoin to perform highly and for them to be able to leverage that Bitcoin in ways so they can acquire more of it. So the benefit is to the early investors, whether they're insiders or not.
Yeah. And like on a crypto standard, this type of stuff is a little bit different because there's really no work involved on the development team. And also it's a lot shadier. These guys have to disclose, because obviously they're a publicly traded company, their F-13s and all that different stuff will show their holdings and what they were paid. Again, Jack Maullers probably doesn't receive a salary. He probably will just receive a certain amount of shares. And then he can do what he wants with them, I guess. Same with Saylor. I don't believe Saylor receives a salary. He's paid in like stock packages. But a lot of these guys, at least when you look at how their holdings, they're not letting go of their shares at a massive rate. They want to hold their shares because they understand what's happening.
Yeah,
And I think that
exactly
this
the
will
point.
happen
Like
here.
Jack Maullers was given shares. He didn't have to pay for those shares.
Yeah, as a shareholder, like the reason I'm holding MSTR and I buy MSTR is because my Bitcoin per share is increasing, right? Like I don't care if Michael Saylor's eating too, but me personally, my Bitcoin per share I own is increasing. So like anything other than that is irrelevant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I guess, like I said, I am rooting for it to work. I don't think it will, but I am rooting for you guys hardcore. I'm like the biggest MicroStrategy fan.
So what do you
because I
think?
like you guys, but I
What
just don't
what do
see
you
it
think
long
won't
term.
work, Dan? Do you think that it's going to underperform Bitcoin in
Yes.
that it not working? That means it's not working?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it'll completely go up in terms of dollars. Like it'll, anyone that has MicroStrategy over, like, let's say the standard S&P 500, they're going to perform. If that's your benchmark, you're going to do fantastically well and you're going to make tons and tons of money. I just think it will underperform Bitcoin. And I think that you lose a lot of your autonomy with it. I think that you don't have the ability to control MicroStrategy in the same way that you have the ability to control your own Bitcoin. But like I said, I'm rooting for it. I don't think it will outperform Bitcoin over the long term. Maybe it will. I'm happy to be proven wrong. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
So
totally cool with
personally,
it.
I completely agree with you that you are losing the use case of Bitcoin by owning shares instead, 100%. And that's why I always advocate for Bitcoin over any of these other things. When I talk about them, I talk about them a lot. But I do think that MSTR will outperform Bitcoin, and it's simply because holding a company, a profitable company that can increase its revenue, its cash flows, its assets, outperforms holding cash. It's the same thing. It's just that what they're holding is Bitcoin, or what you could hold is Bitcoin. So that's why I think MSTR is going to outperform.
Maybe they will. And if they do, I will be so happy.
And here's the thing too, like it's MSTR. I mean, obviously, I'm a MSTR shareholder, but like the thing with it is like, if something goes south and we all need to move to, like, I don't know, like East Africa or something, these shares are not gonna be worth anything. We can't travel and pay with MSTR shares. So at the end of the day, I'm with you. Then I'm Bitcoin is my primary savings account. But I think maybe the rest of us are a little bit of gamblers. I don't know what it is that attracts that side. I don't know what it is, but I'm with you on that one. If I had to choose between the two of them, of course, Bitcoin all day. But there's something about companies adopting Bitcoins and the way that they go about it that just makes you just a little bit curious, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't mean it's gonna work out, but
if I were a company, I would be adopting Bitcoin too. Like,
yeah,
we are on the same page there.
yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Like
we're on
I
the
don't.
same page.
Yeah, I don't have like I don't have. I sold all the companies that I had no big. Like I sold all my Apple. I sold all my Nvidias. I was like, yeah, I'm good. I don't care about y'all no more. I'm all in Bitcoin. And if you don't have Bitcoin on your balance sheet, I don't own you anymore. So that's where I'm at. And yeah, we'll see how it goes, man. It's that part is all a risk. So we'll see.
Yeah. Lee Hawkins says, Dan, why won't it outperform Bitcoin? Please explain. Well, the answer, well, great question. And to be completely honest, I don't have all the information on MicroStrategy. I am not the expert in it, so I could be missing something. I know Forrest, Gen Z, Josh, Ralph, they've all studied this way more than me. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. I just see when people are saying that they're going to borrow and get Bitcoin from it and they're doing all sorts of financial engineering, it's just a giant red flag. Now, just because it's a giant red flag doesn't mean it's wrong. I could be wrong. It took me, I think, like 4 or 5 years before I started getting into Bitcoin. I heard about Bitcoin in 2011, 2012, when it was like $6, and I thought it was a joke. So I have a tendency of being wrong at this stuff. I have a tendency of missing out for several years, and this could definitely be the situation again. However, anytime I start seeing some sort of complicated financial engineering where there's black box type scenarios, which I feel like MicroStrategy is to a certain extent, maybe you guys disagree, that's fine. I start getting really scared and I start saying, I'm going to put everything into Bitcoin and I'm not going to risk it. So do I have an amazing answer? I don't have an amazing answer. Could I be missing out? I 100% could be missing out. That's totally fine with me. I'm just raising my skepticisms. I feel like Michael Saylor is in it for himself. I'm in it for myself. I feel like when I'm buying MicroStrategy, I'm making Michael Saylor rich. But yeah, I don't have a perfect answer for you.
Yeah, I mean, and I understand, when we look at someone like Satoshi, who's such a rare figure, Satoshi really had no pre-mine, and a lot of us, we want to be like Satoshi, you know what I mean? We want to work and earn and hold our own sats. But my final 2 cents that I'll add on this, and maybe we can get to questions, is in terms of outperforming Bitcoin, I would think of it this way. Imagine I have a company, let's just say that I sell ketchup, right? I sell ketchup, I'm a ketchup company. And essentially, my publicly traded ketchup company, I do 10% a year. If I add Bitcoin on top of that as my treasury, let's say Bitcoin does 60% a year, my company of ketchup keeps doing 10%. I'm pretty much going to do 70%. As long as I can maintain my company and continue expanding it, it's very likely that I'll continue to outperform Bitcoin for a certain amount of time, as long as we're on a fiat standard. So while we're on a fiat standard, I do think that Bitcoin companies who do the right thing, who have an underlying business that are generating capital and they're allocating it to Bitcoin intelligently, they are going to continue to outperform Bitcoin for a pretty long time. And that's part of the reason why there's such an allure to these companies.
Yeah. And I'll short term, they could definitely. I'm talking long term, and like I said, I want it to outperform Bitcoin. So
sure, and yeah, I mean, who knows how long we're all going to hold these things, right? I treat MSTR a little bit as I don't treat it like a leverage play of Bitcoin, but I know that it has more inherent risk. So I will have deleveraging events as I see fit and into something that I deem more stable, which is Bitcoin. And Verhoofty says here, nothing outperforms Bitcoin. And I would just have a caveat there that nothing outperforms Bitcoin except more Bitcoin. And that's what strategy can do, is it can acquire more Bitcoin over time. Just the catch-up business analogy is exactly how I'd put it as well. And the financial instruments, when you start to understand them, you realize, well, these companies have these corporations have a lot more access to capital than we have. If I could issue a convertible bond for 0% and then buy a bunch of Bitcoin with it and basically short fiat and buy Bitcoin for like an incredibly cheap rate, then yeah, maybe I wouldn't buy MSTR. I would just do that. But MSTR is a vehicle that does that for me. So that's part of it as well. Let's get to this question. This is kind of related. It's back to the other company here, but friend of the show here, John, my favorite thing about Bitcoin, asks about Jack Maullers' new company, which the ticker will be XXI, which is Roman numeral 21. Does this hurt Strategy's ability to keep running this playbook now that they won't be the only game in town? In theory, the market for Strategy's debt and equity offerings will be more fragmented.
My opinion, I think that Strategy has a massive moat. I don't think anyone's going to catch them. Now, in the beginning, we might see a greater price appreciation because their market capitalization is a little bit smaller, right? So they can more quickly increase their Bitcoin yield, all that different stuff. But in the long run, people are going to want to run to the place that has the most Bitcoin, that has the longest track record, who has the best credit rating, who can get the best interest rate on some of these convertible bonds. And that's going to be MSTR. You know, Jack Maullers is going to do great. I think his company is going to be just fine, but it's not going to damper the market or take too much away from Strategy, because this is a massive addressable market. If we're talking bonds, we're talking trillions of dollars, and trillions of dollars will need Bitcoin exposure. And that's going to continue to happen over time. So I don't think this is anything too big on the battle between Strategy and all the other companies.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think everything is good for Bitcoin, and that means that everything is good for Strategy because they have the most Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, Strategy just has so much liquidity within their options, their converts, their bonds, everything. There's so much demand for it. I think there's a lot of room for other players. But I don't think even like the convertible bonds, I don't think the convertible bond desks and all the buyers will be rushing out to buy a brand new SPAC convertible that is unproven compared to MSTRs, where they know they've been the best performing convertible bond that they could ever hold. So yeah.
And then one like quick thing, like you mentioned earlier about the operating company, and I mean MSTR's operating company is a tiny percentage of what they do. And you know, this Bitcoin education thing, like if they just, you know, get a big YouTube channel, I mean, Jack Maullers is super like charismatic. So like they could just like be a media company and in the Bitcoin space educating people. And that's a potential operating vehicle.
Yeah, that's true. Probably not a super profitable one, but you know, they could have that as an arm of their business for sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop saying bad words so I can get the Jack Mauller sponsorship and get on that YouTube channel. I'm like, look, guys, I'm actually professional. All right, I can get you guys some Mr. B style content. Just give me the funding. You know?
Yeah, 21 needs to hire us as their show. We'll do this show weekly on their channel.
Yeah. You know, not free of charge, by the way, Jack. All right, put them bands up, put some money up.
Yeah. We don't. I mean, chat. We need some questions here. We don't really have much else going on.
Chat. What the freaking heck is wrong with you guys?
Actually, there's some GME stuff here. Whoever Gen Z BTC asked this question: can GME catch up and get 42K Bitcoin of their own this year? I hope GME starts grabbing some Bitcoin soon. What do you guys think? I mean, I mentioned it earlier in the show, but why hasn't GME? I mean, I think it's like they need to announce an 8K 4 days after they do a purchase. So any given moment, they're 4 days away from announcing that they've bought Bitcoin. To me, it seems like they should have bought Bitcoin by now.
Do you think they're buying it in the background and we just don't know about it?
Well, because they're a public company, they have to release that as a notice to their shareholders. Like that's what the 8K would have. It would have that Bitcoin purchase on there. So they need to release that when they do it. So we haven't seen it from them.
I mean, I lost a little bit of faith. Today I just moved my GME shares into the 21, so might pick up a couple at some point, but I feel like my faith is a little low now.
Yep, Ryan Cohen is an idiot. I don't really know what's wrong with that kid. He does stuff like this all the time. You know, he's always getting in trouble on Twitter. And this is a typical GME ape moment. You know what I mean? I do think that they're going to buy Bitcoin because there's no way that this was all just hype and he's just wasting Saylor's time. But again, just taking a long time to do an obvious move. And also now the price is much higher. So good job, Ryan. You're a genius. You know.
And you know, the same thing too. Like even if I had like GME shares, like I would probably like I don't see myself like holding GME shares for a very long time. I'll probably like just sell them for like and buy MSTR shares. But Jack Maullers' company though, I can see myself holding down until retirement, like because I'm more confident in him and because he's a true Bitcoiner. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, a lot of investing is betting on the CEO, right? That's who leads the company. And yeah, I would bet on Jack Maullers way more than I would bet on Ryan Cohen. Gen Z's right with his description
He's an
there.
idiot.
He's
Ryan
an
Cohen,
idiot.
you're an idiot. Someone send this to Ryan Cohen right now, bro.
Yeah. So I don't know. I have 100 shares of GME and I've been selling pretty close to the money call options on them. I'm up on the shares themselves and I've had none of the call options expire in the money. But when I do, I'm just going to walk away from that because I'm fine with it. I'm fine with letting those go. I don't have that much conviction. I'm not diamond hands in Wall Street bets and super stonks or any of that. I don't know. If they don't buy Bitcoin, I don't care about them.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, guys. We got another 5 minutes here. We're not getting much questions in the chat here. I wonder if there's anything else we could go over with this company. Is there any other interesting pieces that you guys have seen about this company? I mean, to me, it's kind of interesting that Tether, like this is an offshoot of Tether, as I said before. They have like the most profitable business, just minting stable coins out of nothing and taking the people's money and investing it in short-term T-bills. And now they're like, okay, well, we're not going to do the Sailor handbook, the strategy with our stablecoin business, but we'll just have this offshoot company that we own the vast majority of voting shares on. We'll get Jack Maullers in there and we'll run the Sailor playbook on something completely separate. Do you guys think that's interesting at all?
I mean, if I were them, I would be doing the same thing. I mean, it really sounds like, oh, they're going to make so much money from it. And I'm for it. Like anyone's thinking like I'm against this stuff is not right. I'm for this stuff. I just don't think it's better than Bitcoin. So I am the Bitcoin stacker, but you know, that's all I do, but good for them.
Yeah, I think that this is like Tether's way of getting their foot in the door in the US because they just relocated to El Salvador. They're not going to relocate again to get into the United States, even though there's a lot of pro crypto, pro Bitcoin stuff going on. They're just going to instead try to connect their name to this company. I think that'll be a good in for them. They're going to be probably competing with a lot of banks pretty soon that are all going to be issuing their own stable coins. I don't know exactly how that's going to go. Probably going to flop if I'm being honest. Tether already has too much market share. And USDC is also pretty much cooked. So it just, I don't see them coming up. But another thing I think is interesting is there's another point about Tether and coming to the US. Oh, Lutnick. Since Lutnick is no longer the head of that company, Buddy needs to get to work. Okay. He needs to be auditing how much Bitcoin that the United States government has. They just stopped that one. What happened with that? Okay. Also, he should be going to Fort Knox, making sure the gold's there because even though that's not necessarily his job, he should go there as the treasury guy and see what they can do in terms of upgrading those gold certificates. So that way they can find budget neutral ways to acquire Bitcoin. So Lutnick now has a lot of free time. He needs to do his job and start working on finding budget neutral ways of acquiring Bitcoin for the US. So I think that's two very interesting things. And I hope that they both get it done.
Yeah. And I would just say on that, it's very likely that they have done the audit of their Bitcoin and crypto holdings, and they never really stated that it was going to be public. They just said it needed to be done. So we all expected it to be public, but they probably don't want to be public about it because it's embarrassing. They've probably had, internal theft they've probably lost a bunch of keys. I mean,
Probably
they're a bunch of idiots, right? So I wouldn't
lost
trust them
Bitcoin in
with
a
any of my
boating
Bitcoin.
accident. Boating
Yeah.
accident for the government's Bitcoin. Oh my God. That's
Yeah,
over.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they did it, and I lost my Bitcoin in a boating accident too. So
Happens to the best of us, man. It's all good.
Yeah. We got one last question.
Biden dropped the keys somewhere on the lawn, and they're like digging through trying to find it.
We got one last question here about 21 before we go. How will they raise and when will they start buying, or do they already own some? So they're basically given all of the Bitcoin through their investors through Tether and Bitfinex. They're getting paid. The company is getting funded basically through them. And then the rest they're doing through share issuance to SPAC investors, early SPAC investors, the public, and through convertible bonds. So if you look at this here, this is actually how much money they'll raise. $585 million of total financing. 385 million of that is through convertible debt, and 200 million through equity. And then on top of that, they will have the Bitcoin on their balance sheet from the equity ownership partners like Bitfinex, SoftBank, and Tether. All right, so that answers that. I have a huge video on my channel coming out tomorrow. I did a whole deep dive through the SEC, like word for word, went through it, explained it all. If you guys want, anyone in the chat wants more than what we just did already here today about that specific company, you can check that out. And Josh at WorkSave Bitcoin, check out his channel. Ralph Nurse Hodl on YouTube, Gen Z BTC on YouTube, and Dan at Bitcoin Reactions. You guys have any final words before we sign off here?
keep on stacking.
Keep stacking, man.
Stack sats or die trying.
All right. See you guys around. Thanks everyone in the
Peace.
chat.
See ya.
See you guys.
Nope.
What will that be?